Welcome to Capitalize Your Finances, the podcast that's your ultimate guide to mastering personal finances and unlocking the secrets of entrepreneurship. Each week, we dive into the world of personal finance and business development and have fascinating conversations with industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories to help you get ahead in life. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to scale your business or someone just starting out on your financial path, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable insights.
Welcome back to Capitalize Your Finances. As always, I'm your host, Chris Ray Panayiotou, certified financial planning professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And on today's episode, I'm going to go over 10 new findings on aging and finances in the United States. But before we get into today's episode, the free advice for the week. Never settle with status quo when it comes to money, because the second you do, you're wrong. Now that we've got that free advice out of the way, it's time to get into these 10 new findings on aging in finances in the United States. And let's just be real. The U.S. population, it is aging rapidly. And in the decade to 2024, leading up to 2024, I should say, the share of Americans 65 and older increased from 12.4% to 18%, according to the Census Bureau's statistics that they put out every year. In the country's declining birth rate and increased life expectancy accounts for some of this increase. And let's think about it. Baby boomers, the generation defined by the post-World War II birth rate boom, are now well into their 60s and 70s. So in September of 2025, Pew Research Center polled 8,750 American adults in an effort to understand how older Americans are aging and the factors associated with aging well. And the findings showed that factors associated with older adults' sense of aging extremely or very well include physical, mental, and cognitive health, financial security, and social support. And some activities are also linked with their sense of aging well, which is, again, this is all what the survey found. So knowing all of this, I'm excited to get into these 10 findings on aging and finances in the United States, as well as how you should think about it. So the first new finding, income shapes your aging experience. 6 in 10 upper income people in the study, and this is 65 and older, they said that they were aging extremely well versus 51% of middle income and 39% lower income Americans. 49% of older Americans with upper incomes reported excellent or good health versus 26% of those with lower incomes. This also correlated with ratings in mental health, which I found fascinating. 73% of upper income Americans had good mental health versus 45% of middle and lower. 87% said they rarely or never experienced memory loss or mental confusion, and that's the upper to upper middle class, versus 77% of lower class. Now, for context, Pew Research, they adjusted incomes for local cost of livings and household size, and it defined lower income as adjusted income of $51,900 or less, and upper incomes as an adjusted income of $155,600 or more. But again, just to give you context, this is going to vary drastically regarding where you live. So the second finding, Americans in their late 60s are more worried than their older peers about running out of money. That's kind of interesting. So 42% of Americans 65 and older said they are highly confident that they'll have enough income and assets to last throughout retirement, rising to 72% of upper income respondents. 37% are somewhat confident, but 20% were uncertain about their financial future. So 1 in 5 Americans 65 and older. Now, this uncertainty, it's most common for those 65 to 69 in terms of the age range, 26% of whom are not too or not at all confident that they'll have enough money to last. That's really sad. 1 in 4, 65 to 69, have no idea if they'll have enough money to last their lifetime. Now, this compares with 18% of adults in their 70s and 13% of those in their 80s and older. Some of that kind of makes sense because the older you get and the more you realize, how much money you have, assuming you have saved up enough, the odds of you blowing it in the remaining years, it's going to be pretty slim. But that is a scary and sad statistic. 1 of 4 Americans 65 to 69, roughly, are either not too confident or not at all confident they'll have enough money to survive. The third finding, younger people worry about finances in older age. So you're kind of like, okay, how does that make any sense? When asked to think about what life will be like in their 70s and beyond, people 65 and younger stated health concerns are their top concern, while financial worries were their second most common. Interesting. 3 in 10 stated concerns about not having enough money in retirement, the availability of Social Security, or increased cost of living. Now, similarly, when the Pew Research asked those 65 and older what advice they have for younger people to prepare them for their later years, listen up, 37% mentioned habits like saving money, investing, and living frugally, which is pretty simple, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the most easy thing in the world. Only health-related advice was more common, offered by 49% of older adults. And so you heard it here, and you've heard it everywhere. Save money, invest, and live frugally. It's pretty hard to screw that up. And also, invest not like a moron. That also helps. Number 4, retirement confidence varies by demographic group. So 57% of respondents with lower incomes have little or no confidence that they'll have enough income and assets to last throughout their retirement, versus 38% of adults with middle incomes and 15% of those with high incomes have little or no confidence, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. So just because you may not be in the upper tax bracket, or you may think man, those people that are paying all these taxes and are running successful businesses or executives or have invested well or whatever the case may be, they're doing fine. Well, according to the study, 15% of those that have higher incomes, they have little or no confidence that they'll have enough money to last. So, just be careful what you think. Now, in just going through the study here in the research, half of Hispanic adults are uncertain about their financial certainty in the future. 41% of African Americans, 37% of Caucasians, and 30% Asians are saying that they are uncertain or just deeply concerned about their financial literacy, which actually shows, when you think about it, it doesn't really matter who you are. There is going to be discrepancy here. Because obviously, there are not necessarily as many Hispanics or African Americans as there are whites or Asians within the United States. I will say, just based on the research, because a lot of Asian Americans that have come over to the United States or that have been here and, they're second generation, there is that pressure. I can tell you, just going to a private school growing up, there is a ton of pressure to perform, which I can tell you that bleeds into why that's probably the lesser of the percentage. But even with that, a third are still very nervous and completely uncertain about their financial situation. Now, this was interesting. Women are more uncertain than men when it comes to financial success in the long run. According to Pew's research, 61% of men 75 and older are highly confident about their retirement finances versus 40% or fewer younger men and women in younger age groups and women 75 and older. So part of that's not all that confused or it's not all that shocking to me. Generally speaking, when you think of financial success in men versus women, there's the standard deviation curve, and it's pretty interesting because if you break down Pew's research on the highest end and the lowest end, men have generally the greatest financial outcomes, but also the worst financial outcomes. And women, it's just a lot more compact on average, which is a good thing because that means, I mean, if you're a woman listening into this, you're like, well, I may not be at the tip top of the spectrum, again, according to the research, but I know I'm not going to be royally screwed like the majority of dudes out there. And it just comes down to a confidence thing. Men have a lot of biases when it comes to money. They just do for whatever reason. I don't know if it's primal. It may just be, I can speak for a dude. Dudes are a little bit more gullible in believing and unnecessarily confident in their endeavors when it comes to money. I don't know. But regardless, like that doesn't shock me in the slightest. Now, number 5, before we get into the commercial break, around a third of 65 to 69-year-olds are working. 1 in 10 adults 65 and older reported that they are working full-time, while another 7% said they're working part-time. Those 65 to 69 are the most likely to be working, 31% versus 12% of adults in their 70s and 3% in their 80s and older. Older adults who are employed are more likely than those who are not to say that they feel their contributions to society at this stage in life are valued a great deal or a fair amount. Overall, a third of older adults feel their contributions to society are highly valued. So what do you take away from that before we get into the commercial break? I've seen this a ton in my career where, especially business owners, when they go and they sell their business, they feel as though, not all the time, but most of the time, they feel as though their value or worth in this world is greatly diminished, or in some cases completely gone, because they've wrapped up so much of their identity in what they do. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, it just is. But if you do continue to work and provide that value, whether or not there's a ton of truth behind it, if you feel a certain way, you do feel a certain way. And sometimes perception is reality. So if you are thinking about, hey, even though I could retire today, do I really want to? Weigh that, because according to the research, you may feel more valuable and you may be more satisfied with your life if you are working in your later years. That doesn't mean you have to be grinding 70 or 80 hours a week, but contributing some way, it's going to add value to your life. So we're going to hit the commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to keep going through these 10 new findings on aging and finances in the United States. So don't go anywhere. Stick around.
Are you ready to transform the way you approach sales? This episode is sponsored by the second book in the Capitalize series, Capitalize Your Sales, the all-in-one sales framework that saves you from ever struggling again and teaches you how to sell with sincerity, which dives deep into the art and science of driving sustainable growth. Packed with strategies that go beyond surface-level techniques, this book will help you understand what it takes to truly connect with clients, build long-term relationships, and close deals. Whether you're looking to fine-tune your sales craft or break through to the next level, Capitalize Your Sales offers a roadmap to success designed for today's fast-paced business world. Head on over to your favorite bookstore, order today, and start capitalizing your sales immediately. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back from the commercial break. We're going to get right into number 6 of the 10 new findings on aging and finances in the United States, which is your 60s are the prime age for creating a will. So 2/3 of adults in their 70s say they have created a will, and 64% have a living will or advance directive, rising sharply from those 80 and older. Or for those, not from, for those. And for adults, in their 60s, less than half have a will and living will or advance directive, and only 1/3 or fewer adults younger than 60 have created these documents. People in upper income tiers are more likely to report that they have these in place. And that is extremely important. That is an extremely important thing that you need to take away. If you don't get anything from the rest of this episode, you need to go talk to a quality estate planning attorney and get everything drafted accordingly. If you don't know where to go, head on over to capitalizeyourfinances.com. Use one of the professional partners that I have. Tell them that I sent you, and you're gonna be taken care of. Okay, but there's this preconceived notion that, oh, I don't have a lot of money, therefore I don't need to get a basic will set up or go and talk with an estate attorney. That is not remotely close to being true. And it's kind of a scary fact. Only 1/3 or fewer adults younger than 60 have created a basic will or documentation in that regard. So you need to get on it if you haven't. Number 7, most older parents have had end-of-life planning discussions. So most parents 65 and older said that they have talked to their adult kids about end-of-life preferences, which is burial or funeral expenses, wishes for medical care, what to do with belongings, things of that nature. Fewer have discussed preferred living arrangements if they can't live independently. But still, roughly 1/3 of older parents have not discussed anything with their children. So if you're listening to this and you have kids that are a little bit older, if you're 65 and older and you have not said a word to your kids about what needs to happen when you pass away, or if you become incapacitated, or even if it's none of those things, maybe you're thinking about gifting to your kids on a yearly basis. If you're trying to mitigate some estate tax planning, you need to have that conversation, because there is nothing worse than getting a windfall after one passes away and you didn't see it coming. And that sounds like a first world problem thing. It's not. It's a pain in the butt. It's stressful. You've got your kids grieving for you passing, and then they've got to deal with your estate. Maybe you haven't set up your will, so now it's got to go through the courts of the state that you're in and probate. It's an absolute pain, and don't put your kids through that. Don't do it. Number 8, older people generally feel well connected. Oh, this is a good one. Older people generally feel positive about emotional and social aspects of their lives. 7 in 10 said they feel they have people they can turn to for support all or most of the time. That's a good stat, 70%. 65% said they rarely or never feel lonely or isolated. Now, on the flip side of that, unfortunately, 35% said they do feel lonely or isolated at times, including 51% of those who live alone. In general, 66% said they feel optimistic about their life all or most of the time. Only 11% said they feel frequently stressed or anxious, though 58% feel this way at least sometimes. So what can you take away from that? Well, my heart goes out to the 35% say that they do feel lonely or isolated at times, and especially those that live alone. So if you do know of those that are older that live alone, or even if they don't, and you've got that gut feeling that they feel lonely or isolated at times, give them a call after this episode. Set up a time to get together with them. Maybe just sit in the room with them. You don't have to say anything. You could just make their day, and you could make them feel a heck of a lot better. And you may even give them purpose that they otherwise didn't even know that they had. Number 9, Less than a third want to live to 100. So 67% of Americans in the survey said people have a great deal or a fair amount of control over their physical health, and 60% said that they said the same thing regarding their physical mobility. Fewer than a half said people have at least a fair amount of control over their mental sharpness and how old they look to others. 75% said that given the choice, they would want to live until at least age 80, including 29% saying at least 100. The average age that people want to live to is 91 years old. That's kind of interesting. There's really nothing more I need to say on that. But I would say this, and I've actually, it's funny. My brother and I have talked about this a lot, and of course he's behind the camera, and so he hates when I'm talking about him on camera. But we've talked about like as long as we want to live or whatever the case may be. And sometimes my mom's like, "Oh, I don't want to live that long. I don't want to live that long." We're like, "Mom, come on, like, don't be morbid." My thing is, as long as I am mentally with it and I'm physically not like a complete vegetable, I want to live as long as possible. I want to enjoy my life. And I think for those of you that are living, that are older, that are maybe not feeling great about your circumstance, flip the switch. I mean, like my old bodybuilding coach said, life is a choice, and you can choose to have any outlook you want on life. And simply by flipping that switch and choosing the positive, you're going to live better. And frankly, I think that's going to result in you living longer and more prosperously. And the 10th last finding on aging and finances in the United States, 40% of people have taken at least one major step looking younger. 21% said they have taken anti-aging supplements, and 27% have colored their hair to cover grays. I'm proud to say I am not one of those. My grays are flowing through. You probably can't see on the camera because I'm a little far back. But for those of you that have met me up close and personal, I'm starting to get my fair amount of grays. That's what you get for having two little girls in the house. 5% have gotten non-surgical treatments, so Botox, fillers, laser. 3% have gotten or would consider cosmetic plastic surgery to look younger. And here's the thing, and this pains me because of the pressure. And I feel for women in this regard. Women were more than 2 times more likely than men to say that they have taken those steps or will take those steps due to pressures in society. So before we close out this episode, shout out to the women out there. Age the way God intended you to. You don't need to put a bunch of crap in your body. You look great. Ignore the pressures. I remember at church, this was, I think a couple years ago, they showed this commercial of this little girl who was happy and, just joy, just that innocence of a little girl. And again, we have 2 little ones at home. And I mean, Charlotte is still a blob. I mean, she's a couple months old, but Abby, has just turned 3, and she's just radiating with love and sunshine and innocent, just raw positivity. And I thought about this commercial that was on and that our church showed of a little girl, a couple years older than Abby, and she's watching this TV, and this woman is on the TV. She looks healthy, but then she tucks in her shirt here. Okay, whatever. Well, then she's not skinny enough, and then her jawline isn't good enough, and maybe her, chest isn't perky enough, whatever the case is. And so they're doing all these augments throughout the commercial. And then it goes back to this little girl, and that's when she starts. And she starts to, put makeup on, but the context is not, oh, this is cute, like mom-daughter makeup. It's, oh, this is the start of the compounding of this woman someday being a woman, realizing that she's not good enough. And that's not true. guys and girls. But again, according to the study, women are more than twice as likely as men to say that they're going to take these steps in making themselves look younger. Just work with what you got. You look great. So that does it for today's episode on the 10 new findings on aging and finances in the United States. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Panayiotou, certified financial planning professional at The Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing. Take care. As always, thank you for joining me today. If you have questions about today's episode or any personal finance questions, please reach out to me at Cap and Capitalize on Instagram, Chris at capitalizeyourfinances.com, or via our website, capitalizepodcast.com. If you want more Capitalize Your Finances content, head on over to capitalizepodcast.com and check out our blog, free resources, book, and online course. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Panayiotou, certified financial planning professional, The Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. These materials are provided for general information and educational purposes based upon publicly available information from sources believed to be reliable. The information in these materials may change at any time and without notice, and its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. All investments involve risk, including potential loss of principal. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. The information provided is based on current laws, which are subject to change at any time. Capitalize Your Finances is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Social Security rules can be complex. For more information about Social Security benefits, visit the SSA website at www.ssa.gov or call 800-772-1213 to speak with an SSA representative. Any other individual or company mentioned in this podcast are not affiliated with Capitalize Your Finances or LPL Financial. Christopher Panayiotou is a registered representative with, and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Capitalize Your Finances LLC is a separate entity from LPL Financial. Capitalize Your Finances is not registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor. CRPS conferred by College for Financial Planning.